here is the weather forecast for the week of October 2nd. And it is Monday. And in this weather forecast, I want to focus on a few key planetary patterns, some that are happening this week, and others that are in effect and lingering throughout the whole month of October, and in some cases beyond. First, Mercury is no longer retrograde. The planet that symbolizes how we need to think, communicate, and travel about the country turned direct early Sunday morning in Virgo, where it is very much at home. It will take until October 17th for Mercury to return to the place where it was when it turned retrograde on September 9th. So between now and then, we have potential for seemingly great ideas that came to us when Mercury was retrograde to be judged on second thought to be not so great after all. So we had an example of that this morning when Britain's new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, announced the sudden reversal of a plan that would have eliminated the country's highest tax bracket. Sudden U-turn. Mercury changes direction, and so does life on Earth. Now, in the language of astrology, when a planet changes direction from retrograde and direct and vice versa, it appears to slow to a virtual standstill from our perspective on planet Earth. This virtual standstill offers an opportunity for us to focus on whatever the planet represents. So, with Mercury changing direction this week, we have an opportunity to focus and hone in our powers of observation and discernment. Mercury is in Virgo. It separates the wheat from the chaff. Another planet changing direction is Pluto, which refers to power, resources, breakdown, transformation, especially in matters of government and corporate structures and energy resources, such as gas and oil and plutonium. And so these issues may be blaring like a car horn all week, like this headline about concern that Putin might test a nuclear weapon called Poseidon, which refers to Neptune, god of the sea. So remember that fact for later in this forecast. We will want to keep an eye on events around October 19th, when Pluto will be in a challenging position to the Libra sun, which refers to leaders. And as Pluto gets back up to speed, it turns direct on Saturday, events that may have been put on hold involving power and resources around April 29th may now move forward. April 29th is when Pluto turned retrograde. Humming in the background all month, meanwhile, is a tense pattern between Saturn and Uranus. Saturn refers to the old guard and necessary controls. Uranus refers to the avant-garde. It is the disruptor that rebels against the established order. And ultimately, Uranus, which rules the future, is going to win. But while these two planets are in this stubborn holding pattern, if you took geology in college, you can imagine two tectonic plates pushing together with neither one budging an inch. That's what we have going on energetically between Saturn, old guard, and Uranus, avant-garde. And so you can see this tension reflected in the world around us in log jams, in supply chains, for example, and also contests that may seem too close to call. And we saw that yesterday in the elections in Brazil, where there was no decisive winner. There you go. The current, where is that? Here we go. Yes. So the current president and his challenger, who is a former president, so it's like it's the old boss who's the same as the new. I mean, it's just so like which is the future? I don't know. Have been forced into a runoff at the end of this month. Another pattern in effect, and this one throughout the year, is Mars in Gemini. Mars refers to action, courage, and aggression. Gemini refers to words, information, and cleverness. And note that Gemini is the sign of the twins, two of them. double talk, double speak. If you've been paying close attention to the news, you may have noticed an uptick in stories involving two sides, a dual nature, dual, but also a lot of stories about dueling natures, duelling, dueling, fighting, a war of words, words weaponized. Okay, that's what we've been seeing. Now, Mars is also slowing down, preparing to turn retrograde on October 31st. And as Mars goes through its retrograde period, one planet it will connect with 3 times, and it's going to happen this month, is Neptune. And in the language of astrology, Neptune refers to idealism and deception. Things may not be as they seem. And over the past few weeks, Neptune has been in touch with nearly every other planet in the cosmic sandbox. So if you think the news has been weirder than usual, you're right, and it's not a surprise. Neptune also refers to fish, and if it looks fishy, it probably is. Now, if you want details on where the moon is this week and how that is likely to be experienced in your own personal world, that will be posted on my website at the end of the day on Monday. Finally, the reason there was no weather forecast last week is because I got COVID. And I'm going to tell you why I got COVID so you can learn from my experience and hopefully stay healthy. I got COVID because I let my guard down and I allowed myself to buy in to the dreamy potential reflected by Neptune's contact with so many planets over the last few weeks. There were 2 members of my family that went on a trip across Canada, and one of them got a cold, a mild fever, a cough, a runny nose. They didn't take a COVID test because if they had tested positive, it would have been inconvenient for them to quarantine in Canada. So they decided to cling to the belief that all they had was a cold. And they didn't wear masks when they returned home and were around other people, including me. But I should have known better. The truth, inconvenient as it may be, is that if you or someone you know has been traveling in close quarters with groups of strangers, you're at risk of catching COVID, especially if you don't wear a mask. And I knew they had been traveling under these conditions, and I should have worn a mask when I was in their company. But I didn't, because part of me wanted to believe in this Neptunian myth. They wanted things to be they wanted it to believe in this myth that it was just a cold. And this is called magical thinking, and it is incompatible with reality. So that's the weather forecast for the week of October 2nd. And as Susie Orman might say, you stay safe. And I'm your weather gal, Elisabeth Grace. Back to you in the studio, Allison.